All right, it is that time once again to hit the books here, part of the Hammer Betting Network, alongside the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joey Knish. I am merely Brad Powers. We have the producer extraordinaire, Zach Phillips, behind the scenes, making things happen. Before we talk Pac-12 and preview the upcoming 2023 season, the final season with USC and UCLA in the Pac-12, let me remind everybody that Hit the Books is brought to you by BetStamp. The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is to use multiple sports books and always get the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like BetStamp. BetStamp compares odds across every sports book for games, futures, and player props. You can save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Download the app today. If you're looking to sign up for a new sportsbook account, please check out the offers available at betstamp.app/hitthebooks or hit the link in the description. If you sign up through this page, it helps support the show. Knish, I'm fresh off vacation. Stadium Tour 2023. How goes it, man? I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks.
Beautiful, baby. Good to be getting. We're getting a little closer here. It feels good. We can taste it now. The finish line is coming here, week 0. I gotta ask the people. The people want to know here. First of all, you're looking a little clean shaven there, little bro. Hey, you got the, looking clean. And give us the elevator speed on the stadium tour. Maybe the biggest event in all of off-season college football. I tell you this thing. I don't know. People are DMing me. I know they DM with you. They're like, what? How's is Brad doing the stadium tour? How's it going? What's going? First of all, I mean, you hit like 80 places in 3 hours. I mean, you were moving, my friend. So overall, what'd you think? Favorite spot? How'd it go?
Yeah, I mean, it was the most adventurous one that I've done so far as trying to hit as many stadiums in the least amount of time as possible. In the Virginia, Carolinas, beautiful area of the country. Everybody knows that. That's not breaking news there. I guess, some of the group of fives were surprises, Liberty in support of anything with regards to, what's going on there as far as the school. But money-wise, they have it. James Madison has a lot of money. That stadium was impressive, even though I didn't get in. Those are some of the impressive ones from the group of five. App State, obviously, beautiful setting there in Boone. Power five, Georgia, Clemson, Tennessee, Ohio State. I mean, all met expectations. So, it was 22 stadiums, 4 days. And I did not speed, believe it or not, because I got to tell you, Knish, I don't know what's going on in this country, but it felt like there was a cop every 3 miles. So I did not speed like I wanted to. So, yeah, it was certainly fun. But let's talk Pac-12 here. And in the final iteration of the Pac-12 teams, I'm anxious to see if they go back to be calling the Pac-10 next year, like they were for much of our adult lives, Knish. But, you got USC, obviously, as the prohibitive favorite. I think deservedly so. But nipping at their heels, obviously, are the Oregons, the Washingtons, the Oregon States of the world, and obviously the two-time defending champ Utah. Can't forget about them. They're right there in the mix. I mean, when you look at a power ratings perspective, this is as strong as the conference has been in quite some time. I think there's 5 or 6 legitimate top 25, top 30 teams. Now, are they as deep as talent as the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world? No. But if you're comparing them to other top 10, top 15 caliber teams, I think they're certainly, right there in the mix. So let's kick it off with the USC Trojans, the team everybody wants to talk about. You have the defending Heisman Trophy winner back in Caleb Williams. Obviously, Lincoln Riley exceeded expectations in year 1, getting them the Pac-12 championship game. Kind of a downer to lose to Utah and obviously Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. But with Caleb Williams back, with some great skill position back, I mean, and I think an improved defense with what they added in the portal. I mean, I bet over 9.5 wins. I thought that was way too short to open this market. Now, you're going to have to pay a hefty premium if you can still find that now. I think 10 wins is probably the more common season win total out there in the market. Did you get involved with USC, and what are your thoughts on the Trojans? Because to me, I think this team is better than last year's team.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I even with some of the skill position losses, I think they more than back that up. And you should see a much improved. I would hope so. A much improved defense. I know talent wise they've really upped the level. But as you're saying, I mean, the only the argument against would just be the fact that I think this is the best rendition of the Pac-12 we've seen in I mean, just 4 or 5 years ago, you were talking about even with this conference being on, financially being on, the brink of disaster here, unless I can get a TV deal. It's the best rendition we've seen in as long as I can remember. And so that would be the only, I think the case against them would be, obviously they've got Notre Dame in the middle. At Notre Dame in the middle of the schedule, the end of the Washington, Oregon, UCLA, Utah at Cal, the last 5 weeks, and I think there's no bye week in any of those. That last 6-week stretch would be the only thing where I could say maybe they get tripped up. I mean, this team going into that Notre Dame game should almost assuredly be undefeated, and be 6-0, be potentially number one or in that top 3 here, and then they're going to go into that gauntlet 6-week stretch where maybe they can even drop a game. If they're as long as they can get to that Pac-12 title, they can drop a game. They can probably win it and make the playoff and be Pac-12 champs. So I agree with you. I think the 9.5 was the play. The Pac-12 numbers now at around +1. I've seen things. 150, 175, even some 2-1 out there. Wasn't too attractive for me. I think you had made the best play on the 9.5. But they're a team, unless they, lose the wrong game or 2 games there in that end of the season stretch, they should be the favorite, and I would expect them to win this conference.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, huge disparity. First 6 games, the last 6 games. I'm not sure there's a bigger disparity in the country as far as breaking up a schedule. I mean, their easiest 6 games are their first 6 games. Their toughest 6 games are their last 6 games. And, no gimmies in the Pac-12 schedule this year. All the big boys are playing one another. So they pull Oregon and Washington from the formerly known as the Pac-12 North. Trip to South Bend instead of hosting Notre Dame compared to last year, they go to South Bend. So it's not easy, but again, I think I could easily see him tripping up. Obviously 2 games, still cash that over 9.5. Don't see as much value there. -170. I mean, I'd certainly still lean that way because, I'm valuing a half win around, certainly more than 50 cents. I'm actually closer to 70 cents. So I'm not going to put that as an official play, but if you're out there needing extra action, you can make worse bets. I'll put it that way.
Let's talk. Seems like going 3-3 in that. So I think all indications are going to be 6-0. And so you're at that point in the stretch where, are they going to drop 3 of those games to go to, I would feel like 4-2 seems like the base, but I would be significantly surprised, even though you're paying 170 there, if they lost 3 of those games down the stretch. I would lean towards more of them, being 11-1 at the finish than 9-3.
Totally agree with you there. I'm not sure that the roster yet is built to win a playoff game over a Michigan, Ohio State, or obviously the SEC. Teams, obviously Georgia and maybe whoever else comes out of there. But they're better right now. I mean, when you talk Caleb Williams in that offense, and I think they're better on defense, believe it or not, even though I'm not a fan of Alex Grinch. So we'll see if they can finally push through and maybe make that playoff. Pac-12 hasn't been in the playoff here now in the last 6 years. Let's talk about the 2-time defending champs, Utah, before we skip over them, because it seems like they're getting pushed aside with all the different narratives. And I promise we will talk Deion Sanders in Colorado at the end of this. But the Utes, got some question marks. And particularly, instead of talking about their overall season win total, which is around 8.5, which I thought was fair, considering that they play arguably the most difficult schedule in the history of the school when you factor in Florida and Baylor in non-conference, and again, playing all the big boys in conference. Most intriguing to me is Cam Rising might not be healthy to start the season. So we've seen some money come in against Utah, particularly in that opener. It's not like everybody wants to have Florida tickets in their pocket with this Gators team, but we've seen that line come down from 10 to 8 as far as week 1, with the uncertainty surrounding, Cam Rising at quarterback, maybe not being ready for the season. What I do think's ready, like usual, line of scrimmage, Utah is just bigger, more physical, play a rougher style than anybody in the Pac-12 on both the O-line and D-line, and I think they're right there in the mix. I think the defensive line is as deep as ever. 7 of their top 8 are back on that side of the ball. I'm going to give you a playmaker possibly on offense that nobody's talking about, the running back. I think, he came on at the end of last season. You're looking at a guy, Jaquindon Jackson, who was a guy that they thought was going to be quarterback originally when he transferred over, and now can be one, maybe that alpha in that running back room. Wide receivers are fine. They lose a stud at Clark Phillips on the defensive backfield, but I mean, again, meat and potatoes. They're as good as anybody on the O line, D line. The question is, Cam Rising, is he healthy? Because if he's not, certainly Utah's not winning a third straight Pac-12 title.
No, for sure. Obviously, that's got to be heavily concerning for us. All that report didn't think that, I think we kind of take for granted sometimes the ACL recoveries nowadays. They seem to be the shortest duration possible, but that's one that, if he's not in, you don't have any, easy prep time here for this schedule. You're going right into Florida, Baylor, even, Weber State is not, a cupcake FCS, going in, into UCLA, Oregon State. I mean, that's one where if he's not, good to go, I think this season, I don't want to say go off the rails, but that'd be one. I like that Florida getting. I like Florida getting the 10 even before hearing some of that news there. I would expect that, depending on the updates, to kind of keep creeping down there, probably to around 7-ish and a touchdown. I've heard now to hear some, on the Bud Elliott's doing a friend of the pod on the summer series, that the defense, obviously they returned a lot. There were some coordination issues I heard mentioned there that they think they've got cleaned up, and there'll be more of a, kind of a old school Utah defense, which even though they win the Pac-12, the defense was a little bit of a step back. I have some concerns about the skill talent overall. It's never been their thing. It's funny, they match up really well, going against like a last year's USC team where they can bully him. The defense is soft. It's kind of what they were, that inverse of what most of the Pac-12 was, that I think really worked for them. Some of that has changed, though, now with USC adding bodies, Oregon really upping their talent level, even Washington going. It's just kind of I think it's going to be tougher for them to run their brand of football and have it work as well this year. I would lean under the 8.5 with the schedule, some of the injury concerns, and just I think the Pac-12 has leveled up. So overall, it would be a lean under 8.5 for me on the total. Faded them in a little bit of a week one on the Florida position. I still think there's some 8.5s out there. Still think that'll close to the good. So I'm a little down on them overall, but it'd be one of those, like, would it surprise me if they, kind of to win against me and, 110 and we got to the Pac-12 title again? No, because they've been kind of overperforming their program level for a long time.
Yeah, they kind of remind me of what Stanford was, a decade or so ago with Harbaugh, as far as the physicality and what they were early under Shaw before he got dumb as far as later in his tenure. But, they're just a different brand of football, but you're right. I just think that the rest of the conference is so much better that a lot of these teams, besides maybe USC, it's going to be a gauntlet to try to run the table here. I just don't think the rosters are built for it. So let's talk the Ducks. So you kind of mentioned them. I thought, Dan Lanning did a decent job last year with them. Certainly defense was the weakness a year ago against the pass. It was, in the 100s if we're ranking it nationally. And they lose arguably their top guy in that secondary, Christian Gonzalez. But on the offense side of the ball, you're talking about Bo Nix back. He had his best year, even go back to his 3-4 years at Auburn. I mean, best year as a collegiate player was last year at Oregon. Prior to getting dinged up a little bit there. But he's back. You got to like the skill position talent. Keep in mind, prior to this season, Oregon had signed the top recruiting class for 5 straight years in the Pac-12. So the overall roster talent level is certainly there. I think when you look at, how far this team can go, I think it's more on the defense side of the ball, which is interesting because that's Lanning's forte, and they were so bad a year ago. If they can be somewhat improved on that side of the ball, then it would not surprise me that Oregon is sitting here in the Pac-12 championship game, certainly in the mix there. But, we're going to find out early with them. I think they got a really tricky non-conference game at Texas Tech. That's not going to be easy by any stretch. They're also at Washington, at Utah, USC. This is a difficult schedule for Oregon as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. This would be the one of this upper tier that I would have probably the most questions in terms of one, their coaching staff, and two, their quarterback. And I know, but Bo Nix is, I see, an upper, an above average college quarterback, but not, you're talking about a couple of guys that are, in the elite realm, in the Caleb Williams, the Michael Penix, even what you would consider Cam Rising when he's healthy. So the fact that of those, of that upper echelon, that I would probably have them fourth in both those categories, kind of makes me not a buyer in terms of their Pac-12 title odds or any of their regular season wins or any of that. Plus, as you said, schedule, tough non-con there with Texas Tech. They got to go at Washington, at Utah. So I don't know if it really sets up great for them overall this season. But the counter there is they've been accumulating talent. Obviously, one of the schools that is in the NIL, playing the NIL game as much as anybody. Yeah. So, they're up there. I would say the roster overall as talented as anybody. Can they fix the pass D? And I think this will be a great test for how good is this coaching staff. Is Dan Lanning, is the coaching staff and the coordinators really, of that upper echelon? Well, one of the things we always, trolled on Mario Cristobal, which we've seen transfer to Miami, he can recruit. The man can recruit. I mean, you can want to play for him. He can give you a great speech. Couldn't really, execute X's and O's and schematics on game day. And I thought they would get an upgrade with Dan Lanning. We'll see. This will be the year to find out, because they got a lot of talent, returning quarterback. So that I think he has a lot to prove this year in terms of if he can be in that mix, because USC got better, Washington got better. We'll see what Oregon can do.
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, they lose to Washington, the rival on their home field. And speaking of rivals, they blow the big lead against Oregon State. I mean, a team that they just have better personnel than. So that was disappointing, because I thought they had turned everything around there. Keep in mind, they get blown out in the opener against Georgia. But then they look like the Pac-12's best team there for the next 6-7 games before the loss to Washington. So, yeah, it will be interesting. The coaching staff will be tested because, look, I know everyone's about analytics. I got to tell you, in some of those games, Washington and Oregon State, they went full-blown analytics, going for it, on fourth down at your own 30-yard line. I don't know if it's necessarily ideal. I mean, I know a Presbyterian coach that was full-blown analytics, never punted, and he got fired and shit-canned after 1 year. So there's got to be a little bit of a balance, I think. Nick Saban and Kirby Smart aren't going for it on fourth down at their own 30-yard line in a one-possession game. So we'll see on that. You're right on that one. Let's talk a first-year coach that did impress me quite a bit last year, that being Kalen DeBoer at Washington. When you look at what he did, this was a program that had been trending down. Obviously, after Chris Peterson had left, they had the 2-year, debacle there, but improved immediately. And what improved was obviously the offense, particularly the passing offense. Brings in Penix, who he coached at, and when he was the OC at Indiana. And Penix goes out there and lights it up, and they have arguably one of the best passing offenses in the country. The good news is they got pretty much all those key contributors back. Penix is back. All the wide receivers are back. I think, outside of Ohio State, this might be the best wide receiver core in the country. That's saying something. Now, offensive line took a little bit of a hit. That's a question mark for me. Defense has got to be better, but I do like the pass rush up front. So this is a Washington team that, I leaned in. There were some early nines. I don't know if they're still available, but I just trust this coaching staff more than say like a Dan Lanning. This is a team that I bet over 9 wins, even though the schedule is not overly, easy by any stretch of the imagination when you're playing USC and Utah from the South. But I did bet them. We talked about them on this show when we were first doing some stuff previewing 2023. This is months ago. We said, hey, bet them against Michigan State. And that line's creeped up 3-4 points. I think we said lay 7 right here on this show. And now that one's in double digits. So I'm kind of a buyer of Washington.
Yeah, I'm with you here. You can't make it. Like, is there a coach that, in a 1 year, what he was able to do that year when I thought, Michael Penix, you go back to his Indiana days, and that you think his career was on the verge of being over. Is he even going to start? And he turns the guy into a potential Heisman contender, where he's just firing all over. The transition in that offense. Hopefully, I would say the one caveat is before last year, Penix with some health issues and that. So hopefully that would be kind of the one kryptonite piece for them. is if he goes down at any point, that kind of,
Yeah, good point.
thinks any chance of, they're not a team that can overcome a quarterback injury because they'll be very offensive centric. But offense was incredible to watch. It'll be incredible again. The defense is kind of the key factor there. I know they added some pieces in the transfer portal. How good will it be? Will it be up to the standard there to be able to compete with the USCs and the Oregons and the Utah? But hey, I think ceiling, this is one of the early Pac-12 futures I placed at some of those number that doesn't exist anymore, but this was one of the ones that was a buyer on of Washington. And I like where, the direction of this program, everything they brought back. I don't really have I think the negative would be they go at USC, even though that, that environment doesn't really strike fear into me as some of the other home field advantages in the Pac-12. But
yeah,
that would be the big game there on November 4th, and we'll see. But I'm a buyer. I don't have I think my only cautionary tale would be the Penix and making sure Penix stays healthy for full year too. But I know you placed a little bit of a Heisman sprinkle on him, and this is a guy, if they can get the hype train going, I mean, he's going to put up numbers and all that. I'll give you here. We'll do a season long player prop at FanDuel. They had a Penix passing yardage at around 3,600 yards for the season. This a friend of the show, a franchise KF there. It's still right around that number. So I played over, and I like it. He had about, I think, a little over 4,600 last year. You're basically bet, like, if the guy stays healthy, he's going over 3,600.
Yeah,
he gets out of bank. So if he plays all 12 games, the 3,600 is an over. So that was an over. Yeah, still there. 36.50.
What are they what's the limits on those? I saw they looked pretty soft. There was more than a few questionable numbers there.
Yeah. Sometimes, there's some people that go down to the kiosk to place these bets that helps out. It might be a little soft on the app depending on your account, but that over is Zach, I don't know if we can make it officially play that one. I don't know if it's on bets. I put it on the sheet, but put it on the sheet. Over 3,600 passing yard for Penix is basically an injury or nothing play.
Totally agree with that. Certainly agree with that. Certainly, again, like I mentioned, probably you can make a case it might be the best passing offense in the country, certainly way up there. Let's talk a few more of the top contending teams, and then we'll sprinkle as far as, some of the bottom tier, because there is a clear separation between the top six and the bottom six. I promise we will talk Colorado. Let's talk, Oregon State. Jonathan Smith, I think, is one of the more underrated coaches in the country. I think it's and they're really quietly won 10 games a year ago. Nobody's talking about it. We had one of their best seasons in nearly 2 decades, their best AP poll finish since 2000. This is a team that was a covering machine, covered 11 of their 13 games a year ago. They enter this season on a 7-game cover streak. Then when I talk about, obviously Oregon State, everyone's going to focus on the transfer. DJ Uiagalelei comes in from Clemson. We'll see. With some better coaching, can he be, better? But then again, he doesn't have the surrounding talent like he had around him at Clemson. So, I'm a little indifferent on that one. I will say he is an upgrade over Ben Gulbranson. Somehow they won 10 games with Chance Nolan and Gulbranson at quarterback. I think that says a lot about Jonathan Smith more than anything. The defense, I think takes a step back this year after they had arguably a top 30 defense, a year ago. They just don't create a lot of havoc up front, and I'm not a big fan. They lose their top linebacker to LSU and Spates. So with that being said, though, man, I do trust Jonathan Smith, and maybe we got a little disagreement here because I saw you spatting with some people on Twitter like normal, Knish. I did bet over 8 wins. Okay. I think the thing is, do I like their personnel compared to a USC or Washington or Oregon? No. But what I do like is their schedule. Non-conference is a breeze, and they get most of the big boys at home. Keep in mind that refurbished stadium, they reopen it this year. I think Corvallis is a much tougher place to play than what many give it credit for. So I did bet over 8 wins on Oregon State. Are you against me? Because you said they were going to fight and claw and scratch to a bowl game.
I saw one of their fans saying that, is this the year for Oregon? Now, I will say, I agree with you. On the non-con, they should get out of it unscathed. I love Corvallis, one of the the hidden gems of home field. When it's rocking, it can be a quite the atmosphere up there in the great Northwest. But no, I think schedule wise, it sets up pretty good. I would say I'm not anti Oregon State overall in the program. Do I think they're going to win the Pac-12 or go to the Pac-12 title again? No, I'm not that. But I mean, I think the top tier of the Pac-12 is so loaded. To me, they're just not in. They just don't have that talent level on the roster. Now, one I wanted to is there's some chirping out of the program around this Aiden Childs character, that early enrollee. Apparently, I think he had an injury his senior year or junior year. So they're thinking he was a little bit underrated in terms of, and so I will say, I know that DJU, I think he'll get the first chance at it. But I think he'll have I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't really perform early on, if there's a short hook for him in Corvallis there. So I know they've got some other, quarterback talent on the roster.
Good point.
You heard any of these Aiden Childs? Because I think the word coming out of the program is they think this kid is the goods. And I'm not a DJU guy. I know why they brought him in, quarterback depth in that. And I know he was looking for the opportunity. But for me, I'm not a huge DJU fan. What do you say here on this quarterback competition?
Yeah, I mean, if he struggles and he's turning the football over, I could see him go back to Go Branson, who was a game manager and didn't get him beat last year, or they go for the future in Childs. Yeah, I am familiar with the kid. He's their highest rated recruit ever at the quarterback position. I would argue watching the U.S. Army All-American game, he was the second best quarterback in that game before he got dinged up. Second best player to Dante Moore, who we're going to talk about here in a second, that's going off to UCLA. So, yeah, I think if he stays healthy and say he commits to, instead of an Oregon State, he commits to Ohio State, his rank, he would have been a borderline 5-star. So that's a kid to keep in mind down the line, maybe November-ish if they're not meeting expectations here. But again, I think it's still more 2024. Jonathan Smith seems like more of a conservative guy that if he's going to go pull DJU, he might go back to Go Branson if it's about winning football games, at least at 2023. Let's talk UCLA. I mentioned Dante Moore, and the Bruins come in. They've steadily, progressively gotten better, not, maybe at the rate that some whatever fan base they have left. I mean, look at the Rose Bowl. There's not much left there, but, Chip Kelly's, it's been slow but steady. Now this year, I think, we'll see what what he's got, because DTR is no longer the quarterback. Obviously, production wise, as productive as any quarterback as they've ever had at UCLA. The cumulative stats were there. Charbonnet's gone. He's been their top back the last several years. They haven't overwhelmed me as far as the recruiting process, but transfer portal, I think Chip Kelly's done a good job. He brings in the Steele kid from Ball State, one of the MAC's very best running backs. At quarterback, does he play for the future immediately? I'm not sure that's the case. I mean, I would make Garbers a slight favorite to at least start the season. But I think by the end of the season, Dante Moore is probably starting quarterback for them. Non-conference schedule is a joke again for them. I think they sweep the board there. This was another one where, man, I'm not overwhelmed by the personnel, but their schedule's not overly difficult compared to some of the top teams. So I played a little over A. It wasn't my favorite win total bet.
Yeah, you know what? So this is one that there's been some disagreement between different guys. Yeah. I would say, friend of the show, Tailgate Tent, I saw Bud Elliott as well. They both played over 8.5. I took some under 8.5 at plus money. Now I know that I think it's gone back and forth there, to shop around. I played back some under 8.5 on plus money, and I agree. The schedule is paper. I even saw, I think, was it Bud that played like a UCLA to make the play? I'm not. To me, I understand the schedule is probably the softest of anyone in the Pac-12 in terms of their overall schedule. I just don't see it with this team in terms of overall talent level. I think quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Love Dante Moore. Think he'll be fantastic. Ask him either Garbers or having him out of the gate. I think puts them at a tough spot in the quarterback position. Chip Kelly, I will admit, I thought he was a dead man walking for a while there. Kind of got it rolling a little bit, but as you said, he's never been the greatest recruiter. I don't think their overall roster talent is overwhelming by any means. At Utah, at Oregon State, at Arizona, at USC. I just think like all these, like I don't know if they're going to win any of these games. I just no, they're not. Just a program culture too that I don't trust them being like the the most the hardest the most toughest team to play there. They've got absolutely no home field advantage as you've said. So some of these other games that are like Cal, Arizona State, Arizona, I don't think they're in the tier. Washington State where like. I don't think those are auto dubs, like those home where like if it's USC or it's Washington and it's those teams at home, I'm kind of checking the box and saying that, I would be shocked if they lost any of those games. With UCLA, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be surprised if they lost to like Colorado, but would I be surprised if they lost to any of those like, middle to lower tier Pac-12 teams outside of that? No, because I don't think they're that good. So, yeah, for me, it was an under 8.5 at plus money.
Do you want to go ride with that right now?
I'll take the under 8.5 and plus. I agree with as like a flat 8, just because they're probably going to go 3-0 in the non-con, and then they'd have to go. But at under 8.5, I think 8's the right number. I think it's an 8-4 team. And if you bet over 8, low juice, good bet. If you're betting under 8.5, you're at plus money. For me, that's a bet. I think that's all the difference there. So I would take the plus money on the under 8.5.
Yeah, and just so people that are listening, I mean, again, half win doesn't sound like much when you play a 12-game schedule, 70 cents. And even though I'm a guy that bet over 8, and obviously I'm hoping 9 wins, I don't disagree with 8.5 plus money that is going under. So if you're good with that one, I'm not going to have a huge disagreement with there, especially, the more I think about UCLA, I got to tell you, man, this is a little in the weeds. I don't think they match up well in their move to the Big Ten. Next year. I think they're in a world of hurt.
It's going to be a rude awakening for the Hollywood crew there.
To say the least. I even think USC is in a little bit of a rude awakening a little bit, but certainly UCLA, that's going to be the case. So there you go. Knish, UCLA under 8.5 for him. Not a big disagreement for me. Before we talk Colorado here.
Oh, yeah.
Because we got to save some of the best for last. Not necessarily the best team, obviously, but some of the best talking material. But speaking of talking points, let's talk about Hit the Books being sponsored by Circa $1.5 million already. I'm even donning the Circa shirt here. Love Circa Sports. The Circa $1.5 million and Circa Survivor, $14 million in guaranteed prizes for the upcoming season. There is no rank, so if the entries go above the guarantee, all the extra money is going to go into the prize pool. Entries open May the 25th. We're already 2 months into that process. They close September the 9th at 2 p.m. So if you're in Vegas for the next 6 weeks, make sure you're signing up for Circa $1.5 million and the Circa Survivor. Keep in mind, you must register in person at Circa Sportsbook in Nevada, Las Vegas, Henderson, Sparks, Reno. You've got to be in state here in Nevada. Weekly picks can be made through a proxy that you'll have to register with from anywhere. Circa $1.5 million. What's the difference if you're not used to this contest? Circa $1.5 million, $6 million in guaranteed prizes, $1,000 per entry, maximum of 5 entries per person. You pick 5 teams against the spread every week. The winner takes home $1 million. There's quarterly and season-long prizes. The entry that does the worst wins a $100,000 booby prize. Now, Survivor, that contest, a little bit different. $8 million to the guaranteed winners. There can be multiple winners. $1,000 per entry for that contest. You got a maximum of 10 entries per person. You pick one team straight up every week to win. If the team loses or ties, the entry is eliminated. You can only pick each team one time in a season. You go 20-0 or be the last person standing to win. If a single person wins, they get the entire pot. And multiple people go 20-0, or multiple people are eliminated the same week to reduce the contest to 0. They will split the pot. Thanksgiving and Black Friday, if you're wondering how can you go 20-0 in an NFL season, Thanksgiving and Black Friday combined for a week. Christmas Day is also its own week. So that is the Circa Survivor and the Circa $1.5 million. Happy to be a sponsor. Love Circa here on Hit the Books. Knish, I promised it. Let's talk Deion Sanders, primetime, Colorado. Again, not to tip our cap here, but we talked about this one early on in the process. In fact, on this very own channel, this is why you need to hit the subscribe and like button for this one, and make sure you're paying attention to the YouTube when we're doing shows here. But we were live on this. We saw under 4.5. It was available at FanDuel. We said, let's go under. There's no way this is going to be a 5-win caliber team with the roster turnover, even though I think they're much improved. I just thought that was asking for too much. I think during the show we moved it. Didn't they take it off the board after we said that? And they adjusted to 3.5, and we've seen 3.5 painted across the board. Obviously, an entirely different new roster. I actually question Deion's coaching chops, especially when he can't out-talent a lot of the teams on his schedule, and it is a difficult
be on the
schedule.
Sideline? He's got like 3 toes left. The guy's having like multiple surgeries. Is he even going to be there for the season? Like I know he's having a lot of.
I will say this though, I won't be totally negative. I'm not standing up here saying go under 3.5. I haven't made that bet yet. I would still lean that way. I think it's a 3-9 team. I did like his offensive coordinator hire, pulling the guy from Kent State, Sean Lewis. I think that's really good. I think his son will be okay, Shedeur Sanders. I just question the quality depth, particularly at the line of scrimmage. And the thing that gets me with Colorado is the schedule. You are playing 11 Power 5 opponents, and the 6 teams that we just went through are all vastly better than them. I still think Arizona is better than them. Arizona State, Cal, Washington State, at least on paper right now, I think are better than Colorado. The only team they're better than, in my opinion, is the Stanford team. So I don't see a lot of surefire wins. Colorado State's a team that I like. That's not a slam dunk win on the schedule for Colorado. So I still lean under 3.5. Hopefully you were watching the show several months ago and bet under 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how this year one isn't, a borderline disaster. For anything anything better than 4-8 is like, give Deion the coach of the year. But I don't see. I mean, they're, as you said, they lost. So I mean, to turn over almost the entire roster, it's gonna be a fascinating case study. But I think it's gonna be a kind of a danger of flipping over this much, of your roster in the portal. I don't love, outside of the, as you said, offensive coordinator, some of the other staff hires I wasn't totally a fan of. I mean, this is one where you've seen all the, I love tagging you in something where it's like 98% of the bets on is, Colorado's 3.5 over. And I'm not Mr. fade the public here, but, people are loving betting this, 100-1 Pac-12. Just donate the money to charity or something rather than put it on this Colorado team to that. I think they're in for a rude awakening here. I think it's going to go bad. That's the problem. I mean, we'll have to see if I think they get hammered by TCU week 1. Then they've got the 2 games, early Nebraska and Colorado State at home. I tell you what, if they better get at least one of those 2, because then you've got Oregon, you've got USC. I think it's got a potential, depending on how the non-con goes, or even as you said, they have no depth, so they have no room for any, injury in that, where this could really get ugly here if they can't, at least go at worst 1-2, if not 2-1 in the non-con. Then I think they're in for a world of hurt in this Pac-12 schedule. So, probably I wouldn't be. I mean, I'm not. Other than I think. I don't want to say, Zach, you can clip it. I think 0-12 is in the realm of possibility. I would be surprised if it's better than 2-10. So, but I wouldn't. I mean, as you said, 11 Power 5 opponents, and I'm not sure. I mean, what games are they going to be favored? What do you got?
Colorado State, and I think Stanford's at home.
Yeah, no, you're right. Stanford at home, but even then. Just the brand of football Stanford plays, like if they can't match up in the line of scrimmage, I don't even know if that's so. It's going to be a long year for Coach Prime.
and what I'm interested is, what's it going to? How is he going to? Because obviously he's had more talent in his playing career. He's had more talent at Jackson State with his transfers. It worked at the FCS level because he can just overwhelm his opposition. What hasn't looked good is when he's had to step up at the FCS, them last 2 Celebration Bowl games, when they had to play the MEAC champion and Jackson State was a favorite in both games, and they lose outright. That wasn't a good look. Now you can't out-talent everybody, and now it's going to, rely on your coaching chops, and I just question it right now. Even I've upgraded their power rating significantly, like 10 points. I'm giving them credit for upgrading the roster. Even then, I can't get them past 3 wins. So under 3.5. You know what? I'll own it. Give me under 3.5. I'll continue the negativity here.
Agree, at minus 150, I agree. At that juice, I like it.
Yeah, give me under 3.5. Even though we won't count in the records, but we did say on an early preview under 4.5. You should have that in pocket if you're a loyal watcher. Most of you are. I know.
If that loses, you can cancel this show. If they win 5 games,
oh my God, 5 games, I would give him the National Coach of the Year. I really would. And we won't. In faraway places, they were offering 5.5 last December.
Yeah, I remember.
That was I can only bet a ham sandwich on that, though. Unfortunately, let's talk a few other teams briefly, and if you want to expound on any of them, let me know. I am a believer in California.
I was going to say, you're driving this Cal bus here, my friend. You are the ringleader of this Cal bandwagon.
Yeah, I know there's some opposition, and I get it. Schedule's difficult, but man, I just think they've been a tough luck team the last couple of years. They're 3-12 in one possession games. They upgraded a quarterback as far as athletically. They upgraded a coordinator, and I think look, it's not a round ball. It bounces funny sometimes after not bouncing their way for several years. Maybe it bounces their way in a few games. I think they're a 5-6 win team. I really do. And I know a lot of people don't like the coach, but wait till Justin Wilcox gets fired if they want to. I don't even know if they care at Cal. But if he gets fired, he'd be out of a job for a week. Somebody will pick him up as a DC. So I think he's all right, even though it's been a little underwhelming. Keep in mind, COVID really devastated that program. They had to work out outside in their stadium. That was their workout facility because they weren't allowed indoors. So I think that hampered the program for a couple of years. Stanford's total rebuild. Yeah, Bill Connolly talks about year 0 situation. That's what we're seeing, with Troy Taylor. We've seen a ton of money under 3.5, under 3. We're seeing 2.5 in the marketplace there. They might only be favored in 1 game this year, or maybe 2 games, Hawaii and the FCS opponent, Sacramento State. But that's going to be a tough first season there. Speaking of first seasons, Arizona State. I like long-term Kenny Dillingham. I don't like this year's team that much. Another significant roster turnover. It'd be interesting with 8 home games. Maybe they can surprise a little bit. I don't see it, though. I did bet under 5 on Arizona State. Arizona, I like Jed Fish and what he's doing there. They clearly overachieved last year. I don't see it on defense. I bet under 5.5. What I say go under, I've seen 4.5 in the market. I would not play that. In fact, I'd probably lean over 4.5. I think it's another 5-win team, even though they're better than last year. I just think the schedule is not great for them. And then Washington State, I took a little under 6.5. Is there any teams that strike your fancy in the bottom 6?
Yeah, I'd say Washington State. I agree with that. That was one that I agreed played on some under 6.5 there as well. And I know a couple others are on that.
Zach, if you can find our 6.5, I'll mark Washington State down as a bet.
Yep, like that as well. I would say the Stanford. Maybe I'm giving Troy Taylor a little too much credit. I think the 2.5 now has gone a little too far with the fact that they have Hawaii and FCS. I'm not running to the window to say Stanford's going to be better than, but I think 2.5 a little depressed now. I'm interested to see. I agree. I think Justin, what nobody's done, almost more with less. Like Cal's, should they even have athletics anymore? I mean, it's gotten to the point where they don't inject any money into the program. They don't have any resources in that, so it's been really. I don't have any NIL to jump on people there. So it's a tough gig. But this would be the one where it's like minus 148. There's a little played some a lesser juice in that, but I'll leave it up to you, Mr. Powers, if you want to still play that at that.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's juicy. It's juicy now.
Yeah, you know what? The other one, if you can find it, I would rather play. That's obviously searching around, so I appreciate it, Zach. If you can find a 5 or a 4.5 on Arizona State, I'd rather play under there. Not a fan of Drew Pine at quarterback. Well, so
no,
he ends up being their quarterback.
Hopefully Drew Pine's family doesn't listen to this show because we've been hating on him for quite a while here. But no, I agree with that. I didn't think that. And they lost a lot of under the Herm, mutiny and falling out there. Yeah. I think they lost a lot of talent drain. They lost their best offensive lineman to Michigan. So yeah, I agree. I think year 1 under Kenny Dillingham is going to be rough. So I'm in lockstep there if you can find it.
Before we wrap this up, 4.5 minus 105. Yep, sign me up for that one. I'll take that one. You can put that under my name. I'll take under 4.5 there. Was there any conference futures? I can tell you I played a little USC, Oregon, Washington. I did, believe it or not. I'm one of them idiots that took Oregon State 13-1 to win the Pac-12, obviously for less than what I bet USC. Was there any long term? I know you're a long shot guy with that. Oh wow, well, yeah. Let's take plus 120. Yeah, of course, man. The plus 120 is a good price there. So there's a bet for me. Arizona State under 4.5 plus 120. That looks like Caesars. As far as that one goes, if you're watching and want to shop for the best number. Was there any long shot conference futures or any conference future bets that you really liked?
No, I think this is like honestly the worst Power 5 conference for long. Like I think this is a distinct like top 4, top 5, and then bottom of the conference there. So for me, no, there's nobody outside of that upper tier that I've even remotely thought about.
Well, guys, that'll wrap it up here. Make sure you're subscribed to Hit the Books YouTube channel so that you get notified in real time whenever a new episode drops or we go live. If you enjoy the content, please smash the like button. If you're listening in audio form, please rate and review it 5 stars. Keep in mind for all the shows, make sure you're following on Twitter at the Hammer HQ on Twitter and also at Hit the Books. And for the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joey Knish, for Zach Phillips, the producer extraordinaire, I'm merely Brad Powers. You just watched our Pac-12 preview here on Hit the Books.